I want to share a story with you today. Becky is sitting at the kitchen table and she's mindlessly scrolling through her phone, but she's not seeing what's on her phone. You see, she's mentally preparing herself for her husband's return from work. She has finally decided to try the gray rock method. Something she's read about online. She saw it in an article or a blog post, and then she even watched a video on it and maybe even listened to a podcast episode. The idea seems simple enough. Stay neutral, be boring, keep your responses short. Don't engage, don't participate in the manipulative games. Basically, become as boring as a gray rock that's outside on the dirt. Well, here is her moment. The front door opens. She doesn't look up. She's still looking mindlessly at her phone, and she just murmurs, "Hey." Her husband, Mark, who has just walked in the door, drops his keys loudly on the counter. "Hey, that's it? That's all I get?" He huffs and kind of stomps off a little bit. Well, Becky, thinks to herself, okay, I can do this. Stay neutral. No emotion, no reaction, be boring. So she just repeats, "Hey." Well, now he burst out, "How was your day?" But she knows from experience that this is not just polite conversation. This is not him caring about her day. This is actually a test. So, in her gray rock mode that she's now trying to do, her voice stays steady, be boring, be neutral, and she just responds, "Fine." Well, the shift in the air is almost immediate. Mark's expression darkens. "Fine? That's all I get? You never tell me anything anymore. What's wrong with you?" He grabs a glass, fills it with water, takes a drink, and slams it onto the counter just hard enough to make her flinch. "Becky, you're acting like I'm the enemy. You're acting like I don't even exist." Well, now Becky can feel her heart rate spike, but she refuses to take the bait. Stay neutral, she reminds herself. Don't engage. She turns back to her phone, still mindlessly scrolling, and she just says, "Okay." "Unbelievable," Mark exclaims, with steam coming out of his ears. But then he calmly says, "I knew this would happen. You don't even love me anymore, do you?" Here it was, the shift. The moment that he stopped being irritated and went from this narcissistic, rageful explosion that was right under the surface and slid instead effortlessly into victim mode. "You're punishing me, aren't you? I can feel it." He shook his head. His voice was full of hurt. "I don't even know who you are anymore. I don't even know how to talk to you." Becky's system is in complete tension, complete stress. Her heart is racing. Her muscles are tense. She's clenched her jaw. This was exactly what she was trying to avoid. Somehow, her attempt to disengage, her attempt to gray rock, had actually just made things worse. And now we are full on into victim mode. Have you ever tried to gray rock a covert narcissist? Have you ever done it? And have you had it just like completely backfire? If you've ever tried using the gray rock method with a covert narcissist, you may have noticed something really frustrating. It doesn't always work the way people say that it will. It doesn't always work the way that you read about it in an article or listen to it on a podcast. Instead of disengaging, they may actually get more angry, more reactive, or dive even harder into the victim mode. Gray rocking can be very effective, but it can also escalate things. You see, with a covert narcissist, it can trigger their need for control in ways that you were not expecting. So today, we're talking about why gray rock backfires, and more importantly, how to use it effectively, how to use it in a way that actually protects your peace without making things worse. So let's dive in. I want to start by really explaining what the gray rock method is. Now, it's often recommended as a way to deal with narcissists, and the idea is quite simple. Become uninteresting, become boring. You see, covert narcissists want an energized reaction from you. They want your emotional energy. So for Gray Rock, you stay emotionally neutral. Basically, you don't give them that energy. You disengage. The idea being that they will then lose interest in manipulating you. They'll become bored and they will move on. But it doesn't always work that way because you see, their response to the gray rock can be really one of three ways that it dominantly shows up. They become angrier and more aggressive, trying to get that reaction from you. Or covert narcissists are experts at playing the victim, so they just go full on into victim mode. Or they just become more persistent, not necessarily angry or not necessarily the victim, but persistent like a gnat flying around you that just will not leave you alone. So let's talk about each of these responses from the covert narcissist. One is they become angrier. So a covert narcissist might not respond to your emotional withdrawal with silence. They might not simply get bored and move on, and instead they may escalate. When they do, they're trying to provoke a real reaction out of you. They want that energetic reaction from you. So when they come in and ask, for example, what do you want to do this weekend? And you're in your gray rocking, approach to this, and you might answer, I don't know. And that single answer right there starts to set off their angry reaction because they feel dismissed or rejected. And so they might respond with, well, what kind of an answer is that? You're trying to stay neutral, it's still you're trying to gray rock, and you say, I don't know. And now things escalate. Now they're exploding in this rage that comes out with, you're impossible to talk to. You know that? I ask you a simple question and you just sit there like a brick wall. Would it kill you to actually participate in a normal conversation? Normal conversation. How ironic when a covert narcissist is throwing words and descriptions at you about normal conversation, the one thing that you want so desperately in this relationship. Well, now they storm off and slam doors. And so the gray rocking did not work. And by did not work, what I mean is now your evening is shot. Okay, they're going to be in a sour mood all night. You've got to decide, okay, do I go and make peace with them or do I ignore them? Do I get the silent treatment? Do I give the silent treatment? Like, where do things go from here? But it's completely destroyed the mood in the home. It makes for a horrible evening. It can like destroy a weekend. So that gray rock method backfired. All right. Another way, the second way that they might go is playing the victim. Rather than losing interest, they might say things like, I can tell you're pulling away from me, and that really hurts. Why are you treating me like this? Well, now their goal is to guilt you into re engaging with them. Again, they want your emotional energy. You're not giving it to them. And so, this is another method that they use to try to pull you back in. And if you are a self reflective, compassionate, caring person, it's really easy to trigger your, what I'm going to call your guilt monitor. All right. All of a sudden, you are feeling bad because you kind of feel like you are being mean to them. And so you finally, out of a sense of guilt and a sense of obligation, you re-engage with them, which is what they want. So to give you an example of how this plays out, instead of escalating in anger, they become your victim saying things like, you don't care about me anymore, do you? Why are you treating me like this? I mean, I try to talk to you. I really do. I ask you things. I include you in the conversation, and this is what I get. I really just don't know how to communicate with you anymore. And all of that can all of a sudden, again, trigger your guilt monitor. Now you are the one back in the loop with them. They might even go so far as to say, I'm so sorry that I'm not good enough for you. I really wish that I could do better. Now that really pulls on those guilt strings inside of us. It pulls on your heartstrings. And before you know it, you're right back in with them. You're back to making them feel better, back to caring for their emotional needs while at the same time sacrificing your own. The third way that gray rocking backfires is when they just get persistent. Now they're just trying to break down your boundaries. They're trying to break through that wall that you are putting up to protect yourself, your defenses, and they're trying to break through. So instead of, leaving you alone or getting bored or even getting reactive or victim mode, Now they just keep asking questions. They keep probing. They keep, following you around the house, asking more. They might even accuse you of being manipulative. Again, not angry or victim, just they might just keep this neutral, but they just keep pushing and probing. This is when they lean in and they push a little harder with persistence rather than with anger or pity. So an example of this is, if we go back to the what do you want to do this weekend, and you and your gray rock method are saying, I don't know. Well, now they're going to follow you with, I'm just asking a simple question. What do you want to do this weekend? Then again, if I don't know, they're going to start down that path of, do you want to go shopping? Do you want to watch a movie? How about if we stay in and cook dinner? What do you want to do? Are you listening to me? Why don't you just answer me? I'm just going to keep asking until you actually answer me. And this can go on and on and on, and they can follow you from room to room in the house. And finally, you just reach a point that answering them or engaging back in with them is easier than putting up with this. It certainly doesn't get you out of the conversation that you were trying to avoid in the first place. So you finally just answer them, which of course can lead then to the loops and back into the anger and the victim mode and the circular conversations. So if traditional gray rocking can backfire, what do we do about this? How do we use gray rock in a way that actually works? Well, the phrase I want you to hang on to today is disguised disengagement. So disengagement is what we're after. We want to disengage from them emotionally, mentally, verbally, psychologically. We want to disengage, but we need to disguise it. You see, if we disengage and they know we're disengaging, that's when they're going to start pushing and prodding or exploding or guilting you and all the things that they do. So we have to disguise the gray rock, basically. We're going to take the gray rock and we're going to paint it and make it a little more attractive. Not a lot, it's still a gray rock, but we're going to make it more attractive. This is minimizing your emotional investment without making it obvious that you're pulling away. Okay, let me give you some strategies on how to do this. Number one is use neutral yet complete sentences. So instead of those abrupt answers like fine, okay, I don't know, any of those answers, when you hear them, you hear somebody just say fine, it says shut up, I don't really want to talk about it. Like that is an abrupt answer that feels dismissive, it feels rejecting. So instead, we're going to use complete sentences and we're going to add neutral phrasing that prevents them from feeling directly ignored. It prevents them from feeling, directly attacked or dismissed in any way. So instead of saying fine, like if they've come in and asked, how was your day? And you're answering fine because you're in your gray rock method, but they now feel rejected and that the conversation's been shut off. So instead answer, it was a fine day. You have not given any more information, but it now doesn't feel so harsh and dismissive. It doesn't feel like a direct rejection of them. And so it can feel more normal. It can feel more natural. So if they're asking, what do you want to do this weekend? Instead of, I don't know, which can feel very dismissive and cold and rejecting, try saying something like, actually, I'm not sure yet, or I haven't given it much thought. Now, both of these still say the same thing. You don't know what you're going to do. You haven't added any other information, but again, it doesn't feel quite so dismissive and rejecting of the other person. The simple addition of a few words can make it feel less like outright resistance. It still doesn't give any real information. It still doesn't engage in a conversation or, it doesn't ask questions back where now we're in a loop or in a hamster wheel. Instead, it says the same thing, but it feels more natural, less like you're shutting down or being mean. And this tiny shift can make a huge difference. Next, I want to talk about keeping your tone light but unengaged. A monotone response can trigger their anger, but a neutral, polite tone makes it harder for them to claim that you're being cold, and it doesn't hit their feelings quite as hard. So a monotone response of, I don't know, when they're asking, what do you want to do this weekend? That can trigger that anger and the victim mode or the probing, all of that. But instead of, I don't know, how about saying, I don't know? That little change in tone, keeping it light, keeping it more on the positive note, can change the way it's received by the other person. Again, they can't claim that you're being cold with that response. You said the exact same words, but it's very different. So if, they start throwing out ideas, do you want to go to a movie? Do you want to, stay home and eat dinner? Instead of, I don't care. That monotone negative response again is going to trigger their reactions from them. Instead, how about saying, I don't care? Again, that difference of tone makes a huge difference. Another way to approach this is to use vague positivity. Covert narcissists love drama. They want the negative feedback. They want the negative reactions because they can hook onto that. This now gives them a reason to be angry. You are the reason they are angry, or you are the reason that they are a victim. They love that drama. So instead of responding with negativity that they're going to feed off of, use lightly positive but still content-free statements. So let's go back to, how was your day? And instead of fine or even horrible or it was terrible, anything like that is going to trigger a reaction from them. Oh, why was your day so bad? Let me come in and be the savior and help you. Instead, we're going to use a vague amount of positivity with content-free statements. So you're going to answer, it was an uneventful day, or everything is moving along as usual. Same old, same old. Any of these kind of responses keep the conversation a little bit more positive, and it kind of takes away the hooks that they grab onto that will feed their need for drama. The last step I want to give you here is to redirect the conversation. When they probe, don't engage, you're going to answer and pivot. So answer, we're going to do it in the ways we've already talked about. We're going to use complete sentences. We're going to keep our tone light, and we're going to use some vague positivity. All right. All of that you can do in like 4 words, 4 or 5 words. But then we're going to pivot. So we're going to answer with all of these tools, and we're going to pivot. So if they're asking, what do you want to do this weekend? And you're now, instead of saying fine or I don't care and shutting down, you're going to answer in these ways that we've talked about with, I haven't given it much thought, but then immediately pivot. What would you like to do? That pivot right there can save you a whole lot of headache when dealing with a covert narcissist. Covert narcissists love to hear themselves talk. Let them. Let them talk. You're not going to get out of the conversations with them completely if you're in the relationship with them. The goal of gray rocking is not to have complete silence with them, because that's not going to work. They're not going to let that happen. So change your goal instead to be, I want peaceful interactions. I'm not going to make myself vulnerable by overindulging or overgiving information to them. Nope, I'm going to put up my boundaries so that I'm not vulnerable, but let them do all the talking. So if they ask, how was your day? Instead of fine, your response, again, going back to our responses we're working on, is, it was a fine day. And then pivot immediately. How was yours? And that's it. And let them talk. Let them go off. But again, don't engage with them as they're talking. To wrap this up, gray rocking is not about going completely silent. It's about becoming engaged just enough that they don't feel the need to provoke you further. Listen to what I'm saying here. Gray rocking is not about going completely silent. This is where I think so many of us do it wrong. It's about becoming engaged just enough, just barely, that they don't feel the need to now provoke you, to probe you, to, treat you with anger to get a reaction, to go into victim mode. It's taking away that response. This protects your emotional energy without divulging information that could be used against you. So without letting yourself be vulnerable, without becoming vulnerable to them. So you're not saying things that are going to prolong the conversation. You pivot, yes, but that pivot then does not prolong the conversation, because now they're on a monologue and you let them tell what they want to do. And it also allows you to walk away without feeling mean. I don't want to, at the end of the day, sacrifice my character. So I don't want to do things that are going to cause me to be doubting myself, going, okay, am I being the mean one here? Am I, not being reasonable? I don't want those doubts in my head. So I'm going to do this in a way that I can walk away with my head up, knowing that I'm treating this person with compassion and reasonable conversation and without feeling mean. So the next time you feel the urge to say fine or whatever, I do understand that urge. I get it because we want to shut them down. Try expanding your response just a little. So the subtle difference between fine and it was a fine day could be exactly what keeps them from launching into an emotional tirade and again allows you to not feel quite so abrupt and dismissive of them. Now, I want to give you an action step before I close off of here. I want you to be proactive and work on this before your next potential eruption. Think about the common questions or comments from your covert narcissist. And what are the things that typically hook you in? The things that activate your guilt monitor? The things that dive you guys into circular conversation? Think about them ahead of time. We're being proactive here. And what small adjustments can you make to your responses in order to keep them neutral but effective? Make a list. Have a plan in place before these moments are needed. Try them out this week and then see what happens and learn from it. If one of them didn't work, we're going to cross that off and we're going to go a different route. Gray rocking takes time to figure out how to use it best in each of our situations. And this is kind of like gray rocking with a little hint of empathy. Like I said, it's taking the gray rock and I'm going to color it a little bit, make it a little bit more colorful, but it's still a gray rock. For more strategies on dealing with the effects of covert narcissism, join my coaching program. I offer both individual and small group sessions, and we dive into very specific strategies on how to handle this covert narcissistic relationship you find yourself in, to be able to decide where to go, but to work on your own healing first so that you can make decisions that really line up with your heart. You can find all of my resources on my website at covertnarcissism.com. I do have ongoing group sessions. I actually have a brand new time slot opening up right now. Go look at it and come on in and join us. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we break apart the insidious nature of these incredibly destructive and frustrating to the ends of the earth individuals. If you are struggling with the isolation, overwhelming self-doubt, and obsessive ruminating, you are not alone. I offer live, personalized coaching that is specific for you. This coaching can be individual or group sessions, or a combination of the two. You can find all the information at covertnarcissism.com. Reach out anytime. My email address is Renee, Renee, at covertnarcissism.com. And remember, I am not a therapist and you are not a victim, but I am a coach and you are a survivor. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a health care provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.